Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Welcome specifically to Blind Reviews and this review of the Golden Enclaves. It took a while, but it is here for your viewing pleasure. So before we start, I want to say spoilers ahead, full spoilers, not even broad spoilers, just full spoilers. And also, my Scholomance playlist will be linked in the description. So if you haven't watched any of the videos that I have made on this series before, the playlist will be in the description. If you enjoy my content, also consider visiting the description for other playlists like the Blind Reviews series and others. But if you enjoy my content, also consider subscribing and turning on notifications. That way you are aware when I release videos. Consider also, if you want to see my writing, since I do talk about it a lot, you can consider subscribing to my blog, where you will see reviews, but also other creative writing that I release here and there. But for now, I'll see you on the other side, and back to the Golden Enclaves. Better late than never, but it is finally time to review The Golden Enclaves by Naomi Novik, the third book in the Scholomance series, which if you have not seen this book, if you have not seen my reviews for that, please, you can find them in the description. I will link the Scholomance playlist. I have 3 videos on it, and this one comes up next. But before we begin, I do want to talk about that as a series overview, kind of. But I'm going to talk about that right now because I want to talk about certain things before I start reviewing this, so that you kind of get a better understanding of how I'm reviewing it now, because things have changed for me since then. So I'm not going to go into the synopsis of the book yet. That's going to have to wait for a little bit. Now, in my old reviews, from what I remember, I did critique A Deadly Education and The Last Graduate. I critiqued it on a couple of things, 2 specific things. 1, the romantic plot line, and 2, the exposition dumps, or just the exposition in general. And I think what I was saying at the time, I did not watch these reviews beforehand. I really didn't, because I didn't want to. Guys, hearing my voice is really hard for me. I don't want to do that. So the things that I had issues with was because the romance kind of just felt like it was just added for YA purposes. And especially because it just felt like they were just being added because it's a YA convention, and most YA stories that have fantasy just happen to have a romance, and not all of them need one. But they do. And I didn't fully like the romance. I think at the time I thought it felt kind of weird to me, especially because at the end of The Last Graduate, spoilers, it literally ends with him saying I love you, and it just felt kind of odd to me. Reading it back now, however, I did actually enjoy the romance, and I kind of ship them. They're kind of adorable. Ryan and Elle are adorable, so I kind of ship the romance. I will say, however, that I would have loved to see Orion's point of view on this romance. It would have been really interesting. Because his character, especially on the Golden Enclaves, it becomes so rich. Like, I'll explain, it becomes like a rich character. Like, I don't know how to better explain it. And I like it. And also, considering the way A Deadly Education was written, which was basically like, A Deadly Education, and even to a point, The Last Graduate, but mainly A Deadly Education, is basically written like slice of life anime. Novik wrote slice of life anime and made it into such a good book. I'm just saying. And because of that, it kind of makes sense, because I saw in a review of the Golden Enclaves by a podcast I follow, Unresolved Textual Attention. I will link their review for the Golden Enclaves below for you. But I saw that the comparison they made for Elle is that one of the hosts mentioned that she was basically like a real life Cinderella, and yeah, Yeah, she kind of is, because Cinderella's tend to be the character type that's usually like, I don't know how to explain a Cinderella. She's just like very, very. They're just usually very crazy in a way. I don't know how to explain it. But if you read A Deadly Education, if I were to read A Deadly Education, the Last Graduate, and even the Golden Enclaves, like an anime watching, imagine type of thing, I see, I can see where where how I can see that the romance kind of works a little bit better this way, and I think it does now work, not just because of the whole idea of her being a real legendary, but because of of Orion's character, and everything that kind of goes on with it. So I do now. On a reread, I did enjoy the romance a little bit more. So I have I have changed my perspective on that. And the other thing was the exposition. A Deadly Education kind of starts off with like 26 pages. Wait, or like 20, 12, no, wait, about 12 pages, not 26. About 10 to 12 pages of an exposition dump. And I actually remember stopping myself from reading it for a time. And I am like, okay, I'm still interested in this book, but I do not want to read it in Braille because I was getting exhausted and I knew I was going to give it like a low rating. So I ended up not reading it in Braille, and I ended up switching to an audiobook where the exposition is a little bit more palatable because I am not reading it, so my mind doesn't, I'm not physically reading it, so my mind doesn't feel so exhausted. So that is what I did, and it worked out much better. I still said that the exposition was too much, and at the time, I really did think it was. I will explain now how that were to be the case. I did think it was a time. I did think that the exposition was a lot. I felt like it was a big exposition dump, and I really, really did feel like they added they started with the exposition dump was too much for a start. And at the time, I consider that I had a bad rep. I'm considering, looking back at it now, I think that I had I realized, not even consider, I realized that I have a bad relationship. I had, not anymore, not as much anymore. I had a bad relationship with exposition dumps in general, and also show and tell. And a lot of it had to do with the way that this stuff is taught in writing. There is a huge emphasis in writing class, especially like Western convention, on show and tell and on not giving too much exposition. And there is such an emphasis on that there is no, but there is no way, there's no like, they show you, or they quote unquote show you, I guess, how to show, but they don't show you how to tell, and they don't show you not to be afraid of exposition in a way. And because of that emphasis, it's I've always struggled as a writer with show don't tell, because there are a lot of things that I could show and just don't want to show, so I just tell them. And I deliver a lot of exposition. I do know that that is one of my things. And I also remember that that was also an issue I had with A Song of Ice and Fire, with the heavy expositions and heavy descriptions. Now, I will say I still have a problem with the heavy descriptions in A Song of Ice and Fire. That was way too much, because god damn, I didn't need to know all those banners and all that food. But I have less of a problem with exposition now. I actually don't have much of a problem with it. And it kind of changed because this year, 2022, around January of 2022, I read a book. I read a craft book. Stop. Let me mute her. Okay, there we go. I read a craft book called what is it called? Craft in the Real World, Rethinking Fiction Writing and Workshopping. And one of the things that it discusses is the Eastern conventions. I think from like Japan or China, where there is that the things are written very differently, including that there is a lot of telling in those stories. And it also talks about hopefully reconsidering like workshopping instead of like show this or tell, or you know, you need to like to show this or whatever. It kind of has a different thing. Honestly, I need to reread that book because honestly I feel like when I read it I didn't get everything. I actually really need to reread that book. It is really important for me to reread that book. I feel, in my opinion, it's very, very important to reread it. So I so that was part of it. And then the second thing is that this year I also got into light novels, interacting with things like Overlord and The Rising of the Shield Hero, and I'm hoping to get into a couple of others as well. I don't know if I want to get into Sword Art Online, but I definitely want to get into a couple of other, um, light novels, like So I'm a Spider, So What. It just sounds interesting, but a lot of these, especially Overlord as a light novel, did have a lot of exposition, and I did critique this exposition, um, in in um, in my first review of the first Overlord volume. I did critique it. I felt like it was a lot. I was also reading it in Braille, which was really exhausting, and I kind of messed up on some of the things. So I, after reading Overlord, after reading The Rising of the Shield Hero, I kind of just started to realize like there's really no right way to do certain things in writing, and I felt that I I critiqued it too hard. I critiqued exposition too hard, and that there are certain things that are done differently. And also, reading these light novels kind of validated my way of writing a little bit too, because since I do telling, and since I love flashbacks, and one of my stories, even though I did not realize it, my Daughter of Death story, I'll link it below, I published it in my blog, but my story for Daughter of Death does start with an exposition dump. A lot of it told in flashbacks, but it does start with an exposition dump. And I honestly didn't realize this until I was actually pasting it to my blog so I could publish it. That's when I realized, oh wow, I wrote it. I made an exposition dump out of this. Like it was an exposition dump. I kind of did not realize what that was at the time. I really didn't. I'm honest. So honestly, I did not. So, and that's when I realized I started with an exposition dump and a bunch of flashbacks and a bunch of philosophizing. So my writing kind of changed after I started reading light novels, and my critiquing changed. Even if my experience is limited with light novels, but I had thought about the craft book a little bit that I read, and I'm like, yeah, things are a bit different here. So my critiquing and my thoughts and my relationship in general with exposition and telling and showing has changed dramatically. So my reviews, my reviewing, my critiquing of exposition has changed too. And because of that, I no longer have an issue with the exposition dump as a reader. I feel like some readers could have a problem with the way that the author started out the books with a bunch of exposition, but I no longer do. And I now feel like the exposition is fine. And it was delivered in a way that is palatable, and it kind of worked. What I have learned, however, is that I cannot read heavy exposition books in Braille because they do exhaust me, so it is better to read it in audio. That is what I have learned. It's better to consume the story in audio. So that my perspectives have changed. My ratings have also changed from 4 to 5 stars, and yeah, I no longer have an issue with exposition, and I also no longer have an issue with telling. And when I write now, I do use show and tell, but I do a lot of telling as well. And I no longer have an issue. I don't feel like I'm struggling often now anymore with show and tell. I feel like there will be readers who will look at it and be like, you need to show this here, show this, show that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, that is a thing that they will critique, and that is probably what they would like, because that is what we're used to. That is what we're taught. But I also don't think there's a right way to write. So that is my relationship. So, in overview, the romance and exposition are fine, in my opinion, now. So I have changed my perspective. Now we're actually gonna get into the actual review of the Golden Enclaves, since we got a 7 to 10 minute rant on that for me. So here's the synopsis, in case you don't know what this is about. Saving the world is a test no school of magic can prepare you for. In the triumphant conclusion to the New York Times best-selling trilogy that began with A Deadly Education and The Last Graduate. The one thing you never talk about while you're in the Scholomance is what you'll do when you get out. Not even the richest enclaver would tempt fate that way. But it's all we dream about. The hideously slim chance we'll survive to make it out the gates and improbably find ourselves with a life ahead of us, a life outside the Scholomance halls. And now the impossible dream has come true. I'm out, we're all out, and I didn't even have to turn into a monstrous dark witch to make it happen. So much for my great grandmother's prophecy of doom and destruction. I didn't kill enclavers, I saved them. Me and Orion and our allies. Our graduation plan worked to perfection. We saved everyone and made the world safe for all wizards and brought peace and harmony to all the enclaves of the world. Ha! Only joking. Actually, it's gone all wrong. Someone else has picked up the project of destroying enclaves in my stead, and probably everyone we saved is about to get killed in the brewing enclave war on the horizon. And the first thing I've got to do now, having miraculously got out of the Scholomance, is turn straight around and find a way back in. I think the synopsis changed since I actually first reviewed it. Because I made a blind anticipates video. I think it has changed. Interesting. So, I do not think I can review this book without spoilers. I really don't. So that's my warning. I'm going into spoilers, y'all. Okay? Sounds like a good plan, right? Right? I'm going into spoilers. All right. So where do I even start? Like, this book was everything. For a conclusion, it was everything. I loved it so much. So we start off the book with Elle getting, we kind of pick up right where the Last Graduate ends, after she is out of the school and all that stuff. That's kind of where we kind of like start, right? So we have them kind of just out now. Everyone is out. Everyone basically returned to where they were. And Elle's mom, Gwen, is waiting for her. But Orion didn't make it out, and she's upset. She doesn't want to see anything or anyone. So she is kind of dragging herself back, trying to pull him out. But when she tries to pull him out, he ends up she's still receiving mana from the power share from him and everything. He ends up cutting her off, and she can no longer kind of reach him. She's trying everything, but she goes on a couple of days of grief, and then Liesel, she's grieving, and she asks her mom, "Why did you tell me not to stay away from Orion, because in a deadly education ends with her receiving a note from her mom that says stay away from Orion Lake. And it turns out the mom had some form of vision. Like they tried to basically, when she was using this patch to heal her wound, she kind of felt her, I think they kind of felt each other, and she saw Orion, and it looked like he was like hungry and like about to hurt her or whatever. And Elle kind of got mad at her mom, and she's like, no, he saved my life and all that stuff. And then she's like, oh my darling girl, I'm so sorry, you know, you lost your love or whatever, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I didn't know, right? So she kind of misinterpreted what was happening, right? Although this is good foreshadowing. This is just great foreshadowing. I'm just saying, this foreshadowing, excellent. I could never. At least I don't think I can. I could never. This foreshadowing is beautiful. But that's something we kind of figure out. And then at some point she shows her mom the Golden Sutras, which was a book that the library kind of gave her about how to build, which shows her how to build enclaves that are mana only. And she kind of asked her mom before she did, like, why didn't you basically let me in? Like, why didn't you go for an enclave? And you kind of find out that they are made out of Malia. But what's interesting is that when the mom sees the book, she has a terrible reaction, and she is upset and crying, and Elle doesn't know what to do because Elle's not used to comforting people. And what you find out is that the mom had made an open-ended bargain. Her dad, her parents made an open-ended bargain where she's like, where they're like, show us how to build, I guess, to give them the Golden Sutras, and they will give them whatever, and they will give to school whatever she wanted, whatever they wanted. And what ended up happening is, it turns out that this is why Elle was kind of born with a bit of a cursed fate, with the where she is a bit destructive. It's a balance. They left an open-ended bargain, and the school kind of took everything, that the universe kind of took everything. So they took the dad, that was part of the bargain, and then of course they took Elle, and then the school gave Elle the Golden Sutras again. So that is why technically it seems like she was born the way that she did, because of the balance that they have. Liesel eventually comes and tells Elle, listen, this thing is getting our enclave is getting attacked. Get your shit together. Our enclave is getting attacked, and I know you're gonna help because you can't let this thing. And she's like, I don't want to do this. And then she says like, fine, I'll do it. Right, I'll help. But Lisa's just like, get your shit together. And they go. That's when she realizes that yes, and also Alfie makes a bargain with her where he's like, I will do whatever you want, just save our enclave, right? He left an open-ended bargain like that. And it turns out she agrees. She goes. They save the. There's a big maw mouth kind of trying to attack, and Elle is so powerful that what she does is she literally looks at the maw mouth and just says, you're dead, and it dies. Like, that is how powerful she is. I love badass witches. That's why I love them so much. Like, she just says, you're dead, and it dies. Like, that is her thing. In the maw mouth did die, and all that stuff, right? So that's when she realizes that it's all created in mana. I'm sorry, in Malia, and she, her request for saving the school is that she that for saving the enclave is that they have to let other people that aren't enclavers visit their gardens in like the library, and it has to be open, and that is kind of what they say, what she made it happen. And at the end she's like, but obviously there's some visiting hour or something, and she's like, I told you what I wanted, do it or don't. And then she kind of just ends up with Liesel somewhere, and she finds out that Liesel is sleeping with Alfie, and she's like, why are you doing that? And it is because Liesel wants more for herself, but Alfie is also willing to be molded into. Oh,
Anexis.
hold on.
Here is your reminder.
Hold on, everybody.
Lunch.
Did it work? Okay, I think we did. Sorry. Dinner for lunch. Anyway, so and also Alfie wants to kind of is happy being molded into something better. So they're kind of both in agreement, and they want to kind of form a throuple with Elle, which she disagrees. She just like, no, I'm not going to do that, right? But also you find out why she's doing that, and it has to do with her father and the seems like his wife. I can't remember her entire backstory, but it has to do with her trying to get some revenge because her mother got murdered because of an enclaver who happened to be her father's wife, and she's just trying to be more powerful. Then she's trying to get more power, be more powerful. However, something happens with Elle, and it looks like they were trying to do something. Someone was trying to do something to her, and they're trying to get her out. And then we meet Yancy, who turns out to be her mom's friend, and they get out. Literally, they get out of the enclave by getting high. It was very interesting, actually. But I'm gonna speak through parts that I'm interested in right now. So now that she kind of knows, though, that there are ways in and out of the void because the enclaves are kind of in the void. They have to. She's like, there has to be a way to the school. There has to be an entrance, and so she's trying to get Orion back, and she ends up going to, like, Adia calls her and everything, and she ends up going to New York. And at first the dad thinks, if I can't give you an enclave seat right now or whatever, and she's like, that's not why I'm here, I'm trying to get your son out. He's like, oh wait, really? And it turns out when she tells him all about how they became friends, that dad is like really happy that his son made a friend, because they were trying to do everything they could to kind of give him kind of like the semblance of a regular life, but he didn't want it. All he wanted was to hunt mals, and everybody thought he was a little, crazy for it, which would make sense. So he had a single-minded focus to hunt mals, and but even though they tried, they got it. She finds out later in the toy, after going into the house and seeing his room, that they bought him toys. They they pretty much did everything, and she's like, and her thought was, they loved him, now I can't, because she really thought the parents were horrible people, and that they were well, she wasn't completely wrong, but basically she thought they were horrible people, and that they did this and gave him this hero complex, because he used to just save people indiscriminately. So she thought they gave this to him, they are horrible people. And turns out, she's like, the picture that I had is wrong, and now it's getting ruined, because she thought they were horrible people. Only to find out, though, that when they speak to the mom, who is up to be the next domina of the Enclave. Elle immediately senses it, that she's a maleficer, and they talk for a while. She's like, no, I'm not bad, I just want, my son back, or whatever. And like how everybody still uses a little bit of Malia because they cheat. And the gist of this whole thing is that she gives Elle the mana needed to enter the enclaves and get Orion back. And she gives him the map. She tells her where the entrance is. There's a point where on their travels where Liesel and Elle kind of have sex, because to de-stress Elle. It was kind of adorable. It wasn't too bad. They eventually find their way to the school, but there's nobody there. There are no mals. No one is there. But they find Orion, and he kind of has the eyes of a Maulmouth, and he looks like he got turned into one. But when he recognizes Elle, he kind of sort of acts slightly normal, and everything. And there's a reason that there are no mouths, which kind of get explained later. And he follows her out. He asked the mom to heal him, and the mom like tries, and she takes her to this house and about, I guess, people that were like her, and the house doesn't want to let Orion in, and she's like, he didn't choose this, he did not choose this. And I guess the house kind of lets her through, and she spends time with him alone or whatever, and and it seems like he's better by the end of it. And Elle asks what she did, and she's like, I gave him hope. I didn't do anything. I couldn't heal him. That's all she's like, I couldn't heal him. All I did was give him hope. And they spend a couple of days where he's very quiet, he's very distant. He helps when she sends him to do things. But she this is also where Elle kind of starts being a little bit nicer as well, because she's usually really grumpy. Where she realizes like she, in order to get food, in the commune, you kind of have to help as much as you can to get food. And she helps, and people in the commune kind of start being a little bit nicer to her and asking her about Gwen and everything, because she wasn't well. And there is a point where Orion and Gwen are alone, and he hugs her or whatever, and he had like his arms around her because it looks like she was asking him, what to do, how he can change this thing. And she's like, I can't do anything. And Orion's mom sends a letter, and he goes to New York to see her, to Elle's annoyance and everything. And Elle continues saving Enclaves, and what you find out, because one of them was and she also continues like rebuilding the foundation with mana based on the Golden Sutras. And one of the first ones that she does this for is Lou's Enclave, because what you end up finding out is how you find out how to make a maw mouth, which is they get squeezed out. Turns out they were going to use Lou as a sacrifice to build their enclave, because you find out the enclave is built on a Mal. So all the Mals that were killed, especially by Elle, were all part of an enclave, and that's why the enclaves are being destroyed. So in a way, she kind of destroyed the Bangkok enclave and I think the Shanghai one, if I recall it correctly. So the reason they were all destroyed is because they no longer had a like something to stand on. And what you end up learning is that, and what they were going to do is they were taking Lou, they were going to like sacrifice her, and they were going to make her into a maw mouth. And what they do is there were bricks that were squeezing her. Basically, they were going to squeeze her into goo, make her into a maw mouth, and her family was tied there because that was who she was going to end up eating first. And then they were going to just but what they do is they create this the enclaves like this, and then the maw mouths created, they kind of use a portal onto the other side of the world. So the more enclaves there are, the more maw mouths that get created. And the school basically kind of, what it did is it kind of curbed the wizard population, because the more wizards there are, the more maw mouths get created. Because also, since people cheat and get little bits of Malia here and there, it also creates a Mal. So the more wizards, the more Mals get created as well. So there's a lot going on, and by the end, there is an enclave. She ends up visiting her at the end, after that, she ends up visiting her father's family, and because she's like, I want to know, because like 2 of her prophecies didn't come true, because there was an attack on there were like some people there was an enclave that got warned of an attack coming, but it didn't necessarily get attacked, and Elle was able to they were able to change the enclave, and they changed the foundation to be mana based. So she's like, okay, 2 of her prophecies didn't come true. I did not destroy the enclaves, I did not destroy the world, and I didn't become evil, and the attack didn't happen. So there has to be a thing. So she ends up going to Mumbai to see her great-grandmother Deepti and the family. And there she finds a maw mouth just trying to get in. And she kills the maw mouth, and she's like, oh, wait a minute. And she realizes that that maw mouth was the one that was probably attached to that enclave, and she warns them, like, the attack might be in about 30 minutes, just be ready. And she enters the house and she meets Deepti and she's like, it's time to see you. And she's like, and at first they're just talking and you find out that Deepti kind of knew that she wasn't going to become a destroyer, someone who was going to destroy everything. She was actually going to save everything. And she knew this because she already knew she's a powerful seer, and she kind of knew what was going to happen. She saw these futures, but she also saw that her great grandson would not forgive her. Like, she didn't tell him anything, and she made very hard decisions in order to protect her family and in order to protect Elle. And one of them was to basically tell people what that she was going to be a dark witch. And the reason she did it was because Ophelia did something to Orion, which I want to discuss in a minute. And Ophelia did something to Orion, and she was the balance, like her counterpart balance. And in order for Ophelia not to find her, instead she delivered a vision that would push them, that would basically separate them from her and make Ophelia not look for her. Because at the end of the day, what the grandpa would have done was take Elle, if she was a dark person, if she was going to be a dark wizard, take her and jump off the cliff with her and basically die, like he would have done it. And that is kind of what she ended up creating. It was a way to protect Elle. And what ended up happening was that she knew the vision before, she knew everything before it happened, and she could have warned her great grandson, but he didn't, because he would not have forgiven her for protecting him but not protecting the woman he loved or his child. And there's a bit of an argument in the family where they're like, you forbade us, you basically made it so we couldn't spend time with her, all that stuff. And there was a moment where there was going to be some separation, where they were going to leave her house and everything. They kind of reconcile at the end, but she ends up going to New York, try to stop the Enclave War, and basically trying to get to Ophelia and figure out what happened. And she finds out there from, I don't remember the name of this person, but he built, I think, an Enclave. He basically supposedly defeated a Mallmouth. And what you find out is that what Ophelia did was she basically she took an embryo and kind of put this embryo in, like, she kind of created a Mallmouth in Orion. But what she did, I can't remember the exact process, but she kind of took an egg and made it into like used like a Mallmouth in an embryo. And she took there was an entire senior class that didn't survive, an entire graduation class that didn't survive. And she took all their wish of getting out, all that belief, like all that wish, the wish they had of getting out, and used it to create Orion as a Mallmouth. And she all that wishing they poured in, she used to create Orion as a Mallmouth. But what she did was, though, she didn't make it a Mallmouth that's going to eat people. Basically, it just said, okay, look, these are the people that you attack, these are the people you don't hurt. Like, you don't hurt mom and dad, you love us, you love these people, you protect these people. And what she wanted to do was to get control, and kind of is like, if you do this, I have this weapon, kind of thing. And Orion, there's a point which was really, really sad and really emotional, where Orion basically wants Elle to kill him, and she does. She's like, you're dead. And you find out that the reason that there is no one there, there was no one at the school, was because he ate all the mouths. He ate them all, including Fortitude. Including Patience, because at the end of Last Graduate, you had Fortitude. Patience ate Fortitude. Exactly what, and now Orion also ate Fortitude. And the reason there were no mouths, well, is because he ate all the mouths that were there. And the reason that is also the reason the mom had that vision. See what I meant about foreshadowing? I could never. And it was so good, though. She ends up killing him, but then she never wants him to go, and she's like, okay, yes, you're dead, but stay anyway. And she had this whole thing where she pushed her belief and she pushed her wish for him to stay. That intent, because also the Scholomance started going away. It looks like she was built in with a, they used, I think it was patience that that they that they build it on, and it started kind of like, you got the sense it was gonna like literally get destroyed, and she's like, you're dead, but stay anyway. And then everybody kind of put their hands on his shoulders, and everybody was like, stay, because of, after Elle said all of that. But and then he's like, okay, I'll stay, right? He stayed, and now he, at the end of it, he ends up being in the Scholomance, kind of just eating all the mouths, and letting other people go in, including teachers, to fix like the equipment. There are people who fix the equipment and all that fun stuff. What's interesting is that he does forgive Ophelia, and Elle is like, Elle's apparently seems to want him to have some trauma, because she's like, she sends him with his mom to kind of like air out his trauma, and then the mom makes her sit down, and she's like, okay, he's fine, but I think you need to do this, because I think you're the one who has more trauma than he does after everything. So, you know, she does. She does all this, and she goes through this and gets tired. But also, at the end, it is clarified, like by a lot, it is clarified that the reason that these people did not want Orion to stay because he was kid. A lot of them just wanted to stay because of survival. A lot of the things that the wizards do in this whole thing was just to survive. And they wanted, Elle and others kind of wanted to warn other people about what the Enclaves are made of, Malia and all that stuff. But every time they did, everything kind of goes wrong. Like their like their phones stopped working, they crashed and everything. They couldn't post it on they couldn't send messages, they couldn't post it on Facebook or anything, which by the way makes me laugh, because turns out the elder wizards, the council, like the elder wizards had their own Facebook group, but in order to do that you kind of had to accept a small amount of compulsion. And it turns out the only way they could do that is to meet someone in person, let them know. So because they don't know that Elle is the one destroying the Mawmouths and all that stuff, and kind of destroying the Mawmouths to hold these enclaves together, everyone is kind of doing it. Liesel is being the one to like kind of organize almost everything. So they're kind of destroying the enclaves and rebuilding them with and in mana purposes. And the book kind of ends with Orion and Elle at the Scholomance gym, kind of talking about a possible vacation. She's like, "We're going to Paris." She's like, "Yeah," and you just get him going, "Yeah, we're gonna hunt mouths too." And she's like, "No, I don't know about that." And she's like, "Yes, it'll be a great time. We're gonna be at the beach, and I'm gonna be hunting mouse. It'll be a great time." And it kind of ends with them like that, and it is very adorable. It is very cute. I did enjoy this book. I think it was super well written. As a conclusion, it's perfect, and it's not fully tidied up, because you still have people who are gonna be willing to cheat, and are gonna be, and these enclaves and these places are gonna be willing to stay to do what they originally did, because for them that is just like safety for them, and these are people that are going to do that. So it's I like the fact that there is no that the entire problem wasn't solved, and it was just like, this is what we're going to do, but people are going to still people are still going to cheat. People are still going to do this, but we can only do this much. So it doesn't feel like everything is solved, and I like it. It was such a good ending. Let me know your thoughts on the Golden Enclaves. I want to read more Naomi Novik. Spinning Silver, was recommended to me, but I also want to make sure I also want to read Uprooted, because it sounds amazing. I've heard of the Tamara series, but I have to look into it. I'm gonna look on Goodreads for more of their books. I want to read more, because they're such good writers. Like, so good. I love it so much. So I can't wait. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Let me know what your thoughts in the comment section is. I did go spoilers, so feel free to have a spoiler discussion. I would just say maybe write spoilers in the comments in case people haven't read it. But if you have watched this video to the end and you haven't read it, I did warn there were spoilers, so that's up to you. Anyway, I'll see you in my next video. Okay, hello. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it if you ended up sticking this far. It is a very long review, I know, but hey, it's okay. Once again, visit the description if you chose to watch this before for some reason and haven't watched any of the Scholomance playlist videos. That playlist is in the description, as well as a list of all the series that I have done in this channel, including blind reviews. If you enjoy my content, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. That way you're aware when I release videos. And also consider subscribing to my blog if you want to check out my writing that I talk about so much and so passionately, in my opinion. Until next time, though, thank you for watching and consume